At breakfast, Marissa was in unusually high spirits. She wore a silk robe the color of blood-red wine, her hair pinned elegantly. She poured tea with the precision of someone who never let her guard slip. "You're quiet today, Lila," Marissa said, her gaze lingering a little too long. "Not sleeping well?" Lila forced a smile. "New bed. Takes some getting used to." Marissa's lips curved, but her eyes stayed sharp. "I suppose. Some people never adjust to new surroundings. Others adapt beautifully." Juliet stood behind her, hands folded neatly, her face unreadable. But Lila saw the tiniest flicker, a twitch of her fingers, a glance that held too much meaning. The silence stretched. Finally, Lila cleared her throat. "Actually, I was thinking of going into town today. Stretch my legs, maybe pick up a book or two." Marissa arched an eyebrow. "Alone?" "Yes," Lila said quickly. "Of course." Marissa leaned back in her chair, studying her like a predator toying with prey. "Interesting. You've never liked wandering off by yourself. Always preferred company." Lila's stomach twisted. "She's testing me." "I'll manage," she said lightly. And then Marissa's eyes drifted toward Juliet. "Then Juliet can accompany you." "I insist. I wouldn't want you getting lost." Juliet's posture stiffened. For the briefest moment, her gaze locked with Lila's, a silent warning. Lila's heart sank. If Juliet came, there would be no chance to slip away, no chance to seek help without Marissa knowing. "Actually," Lila said, scrambling for an excuse, I was hoping for a little solitude. To clear my head." Marissa's smile returned, but it was razor thin. She set her teacup down carefully. "Of course. I wouldn't dream of denying you that." But her tone said the opposite. Later that day, Lila searched the mansion for opportunities. She slipped into unused rooms, peered into cabinets, checked behind drawers. Most of the house was immaculate, but in one dusty study she found something unusual, a locked wooden chest. The keyhole was tiny, but scratches around it suggested it had been opened often. Her fingers tingled as she ran them across the lid. This could be it. Papers. Evidence. Something I can use. Before she could think further, the sound of heels clicked down the hall. "Lila." Marissa's voice floated closer, smooth and composed. "Where have you wandered off to now?" Panic surged through her. Lila shoved the chest back beneath the desk and dusted her hands just as Marissa appeared in the doorway, eyes gleaming. "Curiosity is a dangerous trait," Marissa said softly, stepping into the room. "Especially in this house." Lila's throat went dry. She forced a laugh. "Just admiring the old furniture. You always had the best taste." Marissa studied her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Yes. And I always know when something doesn't belong where it is." The words lingered in the air like smoke. Marissa stepped closer, her perfume rich and suffocating. "You wouldn't be hiding anything from me, would you, Lila?" Lila's heart hammered. Her mind screamed for escape. But all she could manage was a trembling smile. "Of course not," she whispered. Marissa's smile deepened, though it never touched her eyes. "Good. Because secrets have a way of unraveling." That night, when the mansion had gone quiet and only the hum of the wind filled the halls, Lila slipped out of her room again. She carried a small hairpin she'd bent carefully into a makeshift tool. The study was dark, the only light spilling in from the moon outside. The chest sat exactly where she'd left it, its brass lock glinting faintly. Her hands shook as she knelt and fitted the pin into the keyhole. She wasn't sure what she was doing, only that she had to know. After several tense minutes, the lock gave a soft click. Lila's breath caught. She lifted the lid. Inside were neatly stacked folders, their edges yellowing, their labels typed in crisp, sterile font. She flipped one open and froze. It was a medical file. Photographs clipped inside showed a man, Jason, sitting stiffly in a clinic chair, eyes vacant. Notes scribbled across the margins in cold professional handwriting detailed adjustments, sessions, and compliance. Lila's stomach turned. Each page read like a log of someone being dismantled, reshaped, rewritten. And then she found something even worse, a second folder, this one newer. The name on the label made her blood run cold. Lila Harper. Her own photograph was stapled to the corner. Her legs nearly gave out. She flipped through the pages with trembling fingers, records of her education, her job, even her friendship with Marissa. At the bottom, a typed note. Candidate for reconditioning. Status, pending. The room tilted around her. She nearly dropped the folder. Behind her, the floor creaked. Lila spun around, her heart in her throat. Juliet stood in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes wide. She held a finger to her lips, signaling silence. Then she stepped forward and whispered, "You shouldn't have seen that." Her voice cracked with fear, but also urgency. Before Lila could respond, the faint chime of the bell echoed through the mansion. Juliet's body stiffened instantly, her eyes going blank. The files slipped from Lila's hands as panic surged in her chest. And then Marissa's voice carried through the halls, calm and honey-sweet. "Lila?" Midnight strolls again. The footsteps were coming closer. Lila shoved the files back into the chest and forced the lid closed, her breath ragged. She scrambled to her feet just as Marissa's shadow stretched long across the study doorway. "Still exploring?" Marissa's voice was smooth as silk, but her eyes glittered like knives. She leaned casually against the frame, the silver bell dangling from her fingers. Lila's pulse thundered in her ears. I couldn't sleep," she stammered. "I was looking for a book." Marissa tilted her head. "A book? In a locked chest?" The air seemed to drain from the room. Lila tried to steady her voice. "I didn't realize it was locked. I thought it was just storage." Marissa's smile deepened, slow and dangerous. Curiosity again. You never could resist poking into places you shouldn't. Behind her, Juliet stood rigid, her face blank, her hands folded neatly in front of her skirt. The bell chimed once in Marissa's palm, and Juliet immediately curtsied. "Leave us, Juliet," Marissa ordered softly. The maid obeyed without hesitation, gliding out of sight. But as she passed Lila, her eyes flickered, just for an instant, with something raw. A silent plea. When the door shut, Marissa stepped fully into the room, her silk gown brushing the floor. She circled Lila like a predator, trailing one finger along the desk's surface. "You've been restless," she said, her tone almost affectionate. "I can see it in your eyes. The questions, the doubts." And now, she gestured to the chest. "The answers you weren't ready for." Lila forced herself to meet her gaze. "Why, Marissa? Why are you doing this to her?" Marissa's expression hardened. "Because she deserved it. Because he, Jason, thought he could betray me and walk away unscathed." Her voice dropped, laced with venom. "No one betrays me." The words cut the air like glass. "And what about me?" Lila whispered before she could stop herself. Marissa's smile returned, slow and cold. She reached into the chest and pulled out the folder with Lila's name on it. You found this." She flipped it open casually, as though reading a bedtime story. Such potential. Such beauty, wasted behind business suits and numbers. But don't worry, darling. If you ever stumble, I'll make sure you're remade into something unforgettable. Her eyes locked with Lila's, sharp and unyielding. Perhaps a sister for Juliet. Lila's blood ran cold. Her mouth went dry, but no words came out. Marissa leaned closer, her perfume thick, her whisper curling into Lila's ear. "You see, my dear, the game isn't about who you are. It's about who I decide you get to be." The bell chimed once more. Somewhere down the hall, Juliet's footsteps quickened in response. Marissa closed the folder with a snap and placed it back into the chest. Then she straightened, her smile as serene as if nothing had happened. "Now," she said brightly, "shall we have tea?" Lila could hardly taste the tea Marissa poured that morning. Every clink of porcelain set her nerves on edge. Every smile from her old friend carried the weight of unspoken threat. Across the table, Juliet stood still as a doll, her eyes lowered, her movements mechanical. But when Marissa left to take a phone call, Juliet's hand twitched. She brushed a sugar spoon across the table, leaving a faint trace of powder like a signal. Lila's eyes followed the gesture. Juliet's glance flicked to the east corridor, then down toward the cellar door. It wasn't much, but it was something. That night, when the mansion had quieted again, Lila followed the signal. She crept to the cellar, her heart hammering with each step down the narrow staircase. The air was damp and smelled faintly of cedar. Juliet was waiting, her candle casting long shadows against the stone walls. Her face was tense, but this time her voice wasn't the rehearsed softness Lila had heard before. "You have to help me," Juliet whispered fiercely. "I can't hold out much longer."